Hey, it's Grayson. This is the Fixer Punk podcast. This is going to be a quicker episode that I'm actually kind of using to flesh out my thoughts on this topic of CM Punk, his promo, and his newly reinvigorated dispute with Adam Page. And I think that one very important thing that I want to bring to this discussion is that Adam Page and his approach, I've discussed him as being a values-based leader and a values-based champion. And how that shows itself is that Hangman really has no allegiance to anything other than doing what is fair and right. He really doesn't have any sort of allegiance to legacy. We can tell that because he decried the idea of a Bret Hart masturbatory match. He doesn't really have any deference to people necessarily, except for doing what is right by those people. And even if he has to go and he has to correct and discipline those people in a certain way, former friends like, say, the Young Bucks or Adam Cole, he is very much driven by his sense of morality and not by just doing things because that's the way they've always done or because this person says it has to be done that way. He's shown his willingness to walk away and to do what he believes is right, which I think is a major showing of character. And it kind of rubs somebody like CM Punk, who is a legacy guy, in the wrong way. So I believe this extends in and out of kayfabe. So you have the issue where where they're saying that Hangman may be too friendly with Colt Cabana, or CM Punk is getting the wrong thing in relation to Hangman's relationship with Colt Cabana. And CM Punk is like, well, you have to do this is how I'm imagining it. I'm speculating this dispute in my mind. You have to do it this way because you have to keep this kind of not around. You don't want to be around Colt because we have this kind of dispute. And Hangman's like, no, I think there are good things about Colt, and he was probably trying to be nice to CM Punk initially in terms of the backstage stuff, but then it kind of escalated and it ratcheted up. So Hangman is going to call by what he sees based on his values, not necessarily because he likes one party over the other. And you can see that Hangman doesn't have, just does things because he likes a person or because that's always been the way it's been done, or just out of tradition, and always looking to question things. You can tell that because of how he approached helping the Young Bucks, which obviously the Young Bucks, he had a major dispute, major split from them, and he went in and he saved them from Adam Cole a couple weeks ago. He went in, he rescued them, but then he didn't use that as a way to turn completely over to the Bucks and give the Dark Order the short end of the stick. What he actually did from there, which is really amazing, is he cooperated with the Dark Order, and he could tell that from the attitude the Dark Order had, and he has very, very good, I can tell he has very good discernment, and obviously this is probably what makes him anxious, is having this discernment, his ability to think through and see the different moral angles in a situation makes him very concerned, and that contributes to his anxiety, but it also is what makes him so great. You can tell the Dark Order is being very genuine. They said, you can work with the Young Bucks if you want to around the Trios Championship, but Hangman said, no, I want to work with you because you've had my back through getting the World Championship. So the way he's able to straddle the line between the Young Bucks and the Dark Order, but then ultimately choosing who his allegiance is to based on how they treat him. My colleague over at ProWrestlingMusings.com, Sergey Alderman, explained that how the Bucks treated Brandon Cutler is also very indicative that the Bucks haven't really changed, and they haven't really made up for their misgivings. Hangman admitted his shortcomings. He apologized for them to the Young Bucks. But based on that, you can kind of tell maybe the Bucks haven't really come around, and Hangman could sense that. And I think that is a real aspect of Hangman's personality, and that may have come out in some of the things with CM Punk, because CM Punk's around FTR, who's a little too close to Jim Cornette, who said all kinds of nonsensical things. CM Punk, and this is a very interesting thing that we need to think about in terms of leadership in alternative cultures in general, is that oftentimes when people become successful in, say, punk rock or skateboarding and surfing, which I think those are the best analogs in terms of sports to pro wrestling, because pro wrestling to me is in that creative action sports realm, they will oftentimes just get themselves involved with people that are successful in the business world, but maybe don't have the same values, don't have the same consciousness. And then they buy into those ideas part and parcel because they help them succeed. Hangman has a term for this. It's letting the world get into us. And he's mentioned that a couple times in promos. And I think that Hangman can see that CM Punk has kind of let the sort of good old boys method of operation that perhaps he learned from WWE and from other aspects of his career of doing what was necessary to get himself ahead, that has sort of corrupted CM Punk's moral compass. And that's why Hangman Hangman went into him and said that he had to save AEW from him. And that individual discernment, not just thinking alongside the group, is a very, very important skill for a leader to develop. Because you could have a group that's just going along with something, and it could be completely wrong. And if you don't have that checks and balances to say no, then that can become a major problem at some time in the future. And it could be that led to, like I said, Hangman saying, I like Colt Cabana. I think there are some good things about him. But then CM Punk saying, no, we're in this deep, deep dispute, and just because I say I like you, because CM Punk has really, really praised Adam Page. CM Punk has really praised him up until a certain point, somewhat before their feud for the title, and then supposedly CM Punk has been also like hinting at possibly wanting to leave AEW, which I think that's a long shot, because CM Punk got what he wanted in terms of the winning the championship over Hangman, but that could be where the rub is, that Hangman is calling things as he sees them, and CM Punk is tied to tradition, both in terms of how the wrestling is to be done and then in terms of how the backstage is to be done. And CM Punk may have let too much of the world get in him, and Hangman's going to call that out. He's going to do what's necessary, and he's not going to do so in the most edgy and aggressive way possible. Now, CM Punk's promo, especially the fact that he was calling out the most loved baby faces in AEW, specifically Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley, the interim champion. The way that those two were called out, that is a definite 100% heel turn. So that part is totally settled. And I think that is even more settled by the way that he mentioned John Cena. Eternal babyface. I think that there are actually some very apt comparisons between John Cena and Hangman Adam Page. Hangman Adam Page being a bit more of like the socially conscious, a little bit more rootsy version of John Cena, whereas Cena is a more polished motivational speaker. And Hangman's the more modern, culturally conscious, relatable version of that. Sort of, I guess, blending Cena and Austin and Stone Cold Steve Austin, if you had to think of it in that way. But it's that tradition versus that underlying moral compass. It could be the crux of a lot of this dispute, as well as sort of the financial end of things. Not necessarily even like tradition as to the true values of the culture, but when I say tradition there, I really mean like the way we've always done it type business practices, the good old boys club, so to speak, not the actual values, not the underlying creative values of the sport or of the AEW movement. That's what I mean by that. Hangman, again, CM Punk also says this about Jon Moxley, but it's equally true to Hangman. Jon Moxley can be the heart and the soul of the AEW movement, but he can't be the dollars and cents. Now, this is also sort of a classic business conundrum, and a lot of leaders in alternative cultures, I've seen this a lot, in order to get along with the business world, they just totally buy in part and parcel to everything the business world says. No more of the way that all of the positive, socially conscious things I learned at every single hardcore show, every single flyer, every protest, all of that, I'm just throwing it away, and I'm just listening to what the business world tells me is correct. When really what you should be doing is you should be bringing your ideas, your values to that and leading through more highbrow subjects and more complex topics of business and finance and economics and politics through the lens of and with your cultural experience, and utilizing your cultural experience rather than adopting the culture of the world that you are in fact trying to change. I think that's a very important lesson leaders need to take, is you don't put that stuff behind you. And CM Punk kind of put it behind him, because punk rock isn't about making money. It never was. It never should be. Yet he's like, I'm the dollars and cents here in AEW, this alternative movement. And you got Moxley, you got Hangman that have a different vision. And Hangman specifically, Hangman really embodies the doing well by doing good philosophy. I have his quote right here. If history teaches us anything, it's that the people who need deep in their souls to change the world, those are the people who win in the end. Emphasis on win. CM Punk doesn't see winning by changing the world. CM Punk sees winning by doing what the world wants you to do and acting in that way. And that's a path that I think when you have sort of blended social sciences and anthropological education into leaders in alternative cultures, people in different communities and diverse communities, so that they don't lose that sense. They don't lose where they are. To quote one of CM Punk's favorite bands, don't forget the struggle, don't forget your roots, and don't sell out. And that's a lesson CM Punk needs to have repeated to him right now, whether that's via Adam Page, whether that's by Jon Moxley. I think that he needs to hear those words again and listen to them carefully. Don't forget your roots, don't sell out. And maybe he's past that. And if so, we've got to take our leaders, the ones that have stuck to that and stuck to the values, not necessarily the tradition, Adam Page, Jon Moxley, and we give them what they deserve, and we let them shine. All right, this has been a quick episode of the Fixer Punk podcast. Some of this may wind up getting into an article at prowrestlingmusings.com, but please follow the podcast. Follow me on Twitter. If I do make an article out of this, which will be in my series from talking about Adam Page and his leadership through the championship, the Cowboys mandate, which I actually have all of my Adam Page analyses, I think, up at the fixerpunk.com website. But you can also find those directly on the prowrestlingmusings.com website. So follow me at Grayson Nation on Twitter, GreysonNation, and also follow my TikTok at FixerPunk. And that's very up to date with a lot of my analyses and commentary on a lot of different issues. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you'll join me next time. I'll be doing an update on some of my advocacy notes and fixing the Fixer Punk stuff, my personal update, but I want to get this out here on a very timely issue.